Everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the State of AI. It's actually our first episode of this, something that basically has come out of being asked for a long time. How do I get this information? Where do I get this information? How do you keep up to date on all of this stuff? And I get that everybody is not going to be as locked into the world of AI as I am. So what I wanted to be able to do was take a opportunity to create briefs, create ways of giving you that information to keep you up to date on what's new, what information is actually useful for you, what shifts can we start to see, and how can you basically prepare for that world that we're moving into, where there is a world there underpinned by AI. So hopefully you're going to find this useful. If anyone's got any questions as we're going through, put them in the comments. More than happy to try and do my best to answer as we go along, and also have some time at the end if anyone has anything that they particularly want me to pick up on. So what you're going to see is we've got our State of AI report here. This is going to be something that I'm going to do every fortnight. So it's a good way of being able to keep up to date. If you want to be able to jump into other events or subscribe to other events as we go through, then definitely, register, come back. It's a good way of you being able to keep up to date with what's going on as well. So a few things that are a bit of a setup that I have for being able to run through this today is I'm going to go through what's the headlines, what's the big piece of information that you need, what things have started to shift and why have they started to shift, what are the skills gaps, what are the difference between where you are and where you want to be able to be, what skills do you need to be developing, updates in any kind of risks, regulations, any challenges that are coming in from the world of AI and the regulations that are governing it. And then essentially 3 questions. What should you be taking away from today that you need to go back and go, yeah, I need to talk to someone in my office, or I need to think about within my own business in order to kind of move things forward. So let's jump straight into the headline. And I'm running streams on a couple of channels at the moment, so you'll have to forgive if I dart around as I'm going through. So our headline at the moment, I would say, is that the model is no longer the most important part of what you're going to see moving forward, but the harness really is. And let me just give you a bit of kind of understanding around what that means. This actually comes out from a conversation of a lot of questions that I had during the week, which is, I'm using when it was available for the 3 days that we had it, the glorious 3 days of Fable Anthropic's model that was released and then taken away by the US government, was I don't really notice the difference between Fable and Opus. And my main question to them, having used it for 3 days, was like, what were you utilizing it on? Like, how were you utilizing it? And most people are still using the chatbot interface of being able to go to AI. So you go into something like ChatGPT, you go into something like Anthropic, and you're not utilizing it as part of coding or as part of a back end. You're utilizing it to go and ask questions and get responses. And if you're using models like that at the moment, you're not going to notice the difference between probably a lot of the upgrades that happen within these models, because the whole thing is they're not really designed. They're not really. It's not really about getting better prompt outputs now. It's not really about you being able to go, oh, that language is slightly better than this one or that one, or it communicates in a way that's more understandable. That's very much 2025, 2024. 2024, yeah. So we're I'm just wondering what dates are we in, what decade. So what we're really thinking about is those responses now. They're good. You might still be able to notice AI writing. Some sound better and more natural than others, and it depends on the model that you're utilizing. But the real differences that you're seeing is when it's being utilized as part of a backend, as part of a harness. And what I mean by that is these models now can sit within your system and operate your machine. They can operate workflows. They can do a lot of tasks in the background. We talk about it when you're kind of going into when we're looking at it being able to go into the real operations of your machine. So being able to get it work. Like, I have my AI model sit on a server that sits in a cupboard over there. The difference is now is when it's being able to go and utilize all those operations in the background. So when I was utilizing Fable, being able to utilize it to go and build systems, build protocols, build new ways of being able to do things, that is where it's a complete game changer to what it was previously. I can see from Patrick kind of emphasizing that as well within the comments. Fable felt no different to me than Opus when they had access to it, but you weren't coding through it. And you won't notice the difference between it. You won't feel the difference between it because it's not about getting you those responses. It's about being able to do actual genuine tasks. If this is something that you're interested in and you want to see more practicality of, every Thursday, I do a live vibe coding session. And essentially, we work on real problems and show you how agents are able to go and do these things. So we're really moving from this era of chatbot interface, which is where most people are at. If you're utilizing Copilot or something, you're typing into a box and you're getting a response. The era of AI that we're moving into now is this more agentic way of being able to do things, which means it's about your agents having access to memories. It's about them having access to tools. It's about them being able to decide on the best way to go and complete a task and learn from it and then do it better the next time. So you might be using things like an MCP protocol, which is a way that you give your AI agents tools. This deck that you're seeing today was designed by an AI agent using a tool called Pencil. And that's a tool that's specifically designed for AI agents. It's basically like Canva for AI agents. And they go and build everything that you need to be able to do. So in order to be able to create this deck, it had to go and research all of my posts that have happened over the last 2 weeks. It's gone and done the design. It's gone and built all the information. That's where you're going to notice the difference between something like Fable and Opus, because Fable is going to be able to do much, much more of that harness work. It's designed to be a multi-level agent, which basically means instead of it being something that's just giving you a response, it can send out lots of little AI agents to go and complete tasks, and it can do that over the space of hours to days. And that's the difference between the AIs that we're talking about at the moment. So if you're seeing all these new models come out, you're probably not going to notice a huge difference in when it comes back to like that chatbot interface. But if you're utilizing it as part of a harness, you're going to see that coming much more prominent. And that's what got people really excited about it. That's also where the threatening part came from it, because the part that the US government wasn't happy with is you could go into Fable, you could go, I want you to look through all of my system, all of my code, and I want you to find any bugs or security flaws and stuff like that, which is great if you're an independent developer. And it was really good at going and finding those flaws and patching them up. But also, if you're a malicious actor, you could utilize it in exactly the same way in order to be able to kind of get your responses coming back. So that's our headline. What's moved? What happens? Where have we come from, and where are we going to? So when we're looking at kind of following on from that Fable stories, you're looking at things now that can do longer coding sessions, much more self-driven, rather than having to be all through people being able to put prompts through the system. It's a case of you being able to set a task and it being able to work its way all the way through until it is able to go and complete that task. You also have a lot of capable hardware that you can run on your own systems now. So one of the biggest concerns that people have when it comes to AI, I talk to people who work with lots of sensitive information, is okay, I don't want to be putting that information into someone else's system. And what we're seeing is a real development in things that are being able to be self-hosted, language models that work on your computer, and you being able to go and get the information that you want from it. Now, don't get me wrong, these, when it comes to doing things like coding tasks and stuff like that, they have their limitations. They're never going to be, well, I say they're never going to be as good as the frontier models. They're not as good as the frontier models yet, but if you're utilizing it for day-to-day tasks, email rewriting, I use mine for a lot of spelling stuff, being able to kind of get them to put together documents, what people were previously using it for the last couple of years and what most people are utilizing it now for, AI agents that sit on your own computer and language models that sit on your own computer running on standard hardware is a very plausible, very doable thing. So you are going to see that that's going to be much more prominent in what we're working on. So you can do those things, and if they're on your computer, they're going to be more secure. This also ties into a lot of announcements that we're seeing. So if you're looking at NVIDIA and Microsoft, they've announced their partnership in terms of developing computers with onboard AI operations. And I think that goes to show a lot of where the world is going to, because If you're someone like Microsoft, you don't have an AI model. You're utilizing other people's models, and what you have is a harness, which is Copilot. And what they're basically doing is going, well, actually, we don't really have a participant in this AI model race, but what we can do is if local models run on people's computers, then that's a good reason to be able to go from Microsoft. If you're looking at security and if you're looking at the workplace, they're going to want to be able to go, well, you can run these on your own computer. You don't have to worry about security. And just so happens that you utilize our harness as well to be able to do it. So I can see the twist that's coming in there. And I think that's something to be mindful of if you're a business in the next couple of years, because that will probably make a difference. So let me just quickly go on to our next one. Next one, we are looking at the AI organization chart splitting in two. So what I mean by this is that previously, when you've been looking at things like L&D budgets and stuff like that, it tends to be skills that go kind of across the board of the organization. And what's more been prominent when it comes to AI at the moment is being able to go, right, we're looking at Copilot licenses. How many people can we get utilizing Copilot? Which isn't really the right, it's not a very good metric. It doesn't show the benefits. In fact, one of the things that we're seeing a lot of at the moment is people having access to AI. They're getting some productivity gains from it, but actually they spend so much time doing what we call bot sitting, which is actually reducing the productivity gains that they're doing, because they're spending so much time having to basically work through those bots and spending time iterating on a prompt in order to be able to get the output that they're looking for. So what they're gaining, they're probably having taken back as well. And what you really want to start looking at is being able to go, how do we look at this? Not from what tool should we use and how do we train people on the tools, but where in our workflow does this actually have value? How can we utilize AI in the tasks that we do every day? There's no point getting a new tool and going, you know what, we're going to do 1,000 things that we weren't doing before. Make it so it does the things that you do more efficiently. And instead of trying to just go, well, we can scope this bigger, we can, if we've got more time, then we just do more. Go, how can we actually utilize it to do what we do better? So that's a shift that I can definitely see. And I would start to think about it from, if you're an organization, think about the pilots that you're running, think about creating small environments to learn these things, to learn the lessons, and then sharing those with your organization. Smart glasses. So one of the things that is coming up more and more is the use of wearables. We have seen, I think the company is called Monco. A Chinese company has released some AI smart glasses this week. I think there were 49 grams, but capable of being able to do your coding, your messages, all of that kind of stuff, just within your smart glasses. And what you're going to see is this kind of shift to being able to do coding through your voice, through looking at your screen in smart glasses, not necessarily having to be as part of a computer or even on a mobile phone. So you're going to see this change in UX and how people interact with their AIs, because it's not just going to be a case of sitting down in front of a computer with a chatbot. So you're beginning to see some of that shift. Right. What's the skills gap? What are the capabilities that are more valuable in this time, and what kind of things might you want to be thinking of training for as we keep moving forward? So this is probably the biggest conversation I have with organizations that I do consulting for. And when everybody comes to me and goes, Jamie wants some AI training, I go, cool. Yes, there's definitely parts of that we can do. But if you really want to be able to see the gains from it, you really want to be able to see the value in it, what you want to be doing is mapping out the workflow before you're buying the tools. Actually, when I work with organizations on a longer term scale, what I generally tend to do is we don't touch AI for the first 4 weeks, 6 weeks. And that's because the thing that we want to be able to do is not get people to focus on the tools, but to be focusing on the value they're trying to get. If you know how to utilize one AI tool, the whole point of AI is it's intent driven. You have to be able to clearly describe what you want in order to be able to get the best from it. And if your workflow isn't mapped out in a way that is meaningful and that you can describe to an AI, you're never going to get the value back from it. So focus on mapping out the work before you start to buy agent tools or anything like that. Also start to think about, how you're going to kind of draw out these processes in a way that moves you from chatbots to agents. So if you're thinking about chatbots, you're thinking about those prompts. Start thinking about what are the tasks that are better suited to an AI, and what are the tasks that are better suited to a human being. And that will help you to be able to work out where you're going to see the most value from AI. Which leads me on to my next point, which is a way of being able to do that. So if I was you, I would take one workflow and I would lay it out step by step, all of the different components of it. And this is what I generally do when working with clients, particularly small businesses, is we'll put a sticker next to each of the ones, and it will either have a tag of eliminate, automate, or delegate. So eliminate is essentially looking at that process and going, what on earth are we doing in that part of that process? That actually adds no value to what we do at all whatsoever. Automating a pointless process doesn't make it a good process. It just makes it a bad process that's done faster and quicker, and without any extra value being added in. So definitely going to start to think about that elimination of those tasks that you don't need. Now, if it's repetitive, involves a lot of text, or you could teach an intern to do it, you are going to be looking at being able to automate that task. So that might be through an AI agent, that might be through an automation, but essentially you're going, this task is a machine task. So normally if it's repetitive, reciting information, regurgitating information, that's going to be primed for AI. And that part you can start to build into your workflow, and then you can decide how you want to do it, where's going to be the best place to do it. Then you're going to be looking at delegation. So what needs to be done by a human being? Where is it important to have human oversight on everything that you want to be able to do? It could be the case of you handing over to an agent to be able to do it, but it's also the case of being able to go, how can we make sure that the human being, we have human input on this, we have humans in the loop, or we need to be able to go, actually, we can delegate this task to an agent and we can bring it back through. So that's the way that I would look at what we are working on at the moment as we go from eliminate, automate, and delegate. We've got a comment here from Maria, which is, in the next years, AI is not going to feel like new chat models as much as a shift into systems that do the work for you in a real and digital world. 100% agree. Couldn't have put it better if I tried. This whole chatbot interface that we have at the moment is going to be such a small part of the way that we operate within an AI-driven world, and that's that shift from chatbots to agents and agentic. So 100% agree with you there, Maria. Next one. So this is where we're talking about engineering the harness and not the prompt. So a lot of what you see organizations talking about, and a lot of your AI experts, your AI trainers, I put in quotation marks with a little bit of a zing to it, because I think there's a lot of people being able to go, in the last 2 years, you could go, oh, if I'm training on AI, all I need to be able to do is tell people how to structure a piece of writing. And that skill has a very low barrier to entry. When you're talking about being able to utilize AI agents and agentic, there is a higher barrier to be able to get there. And it's a case of learning how to utilize these tools in a very meaningful way, not just a case of being able to structure things in a prompt. So what you're going to be looking at now is building things that, yes, you want to be able to do prompt engineering. That's your level 1. But the next part is those AI agents don't just need what you're asking it for anymore. They don't just need you to type in your query. They need the context. I built my whole of my system sits on my server that all of the AI agents that I have that run my business have context to. So they understand what we try to do, how we try to deliver it, the services that are meaningful. What kind of language do we have? What's our style guide? What's our communication methods? What are the messages that we're trying to say? So essentially, those systems, your AI agents having access to those systems is how you get the best out of them, because they're able to utilize context. So this is slightly on the RAG side, retrieval augmented generation, but it's also not limited to that. And now what we have is harness engineering. So this is essentially the tools, the equipment, the capability that your agents have access to in order to go and complete a task. Does it need to have access to a web browser? Does it need to have access to your HubSpot? Can you get it to control do you need it to be able to draft emails for you? So you need to give it access to your emails via API or whichever tools you utilize. So this is where you're starting to think about these agents as much more multifaceted, almost like people that you are having to manage. You will be in a situation where you are if you are a manager, you are managing people and you are managing agents. And those two things together are going to make up your workforce. So that's where you're moving from this prompt engineering to harness engineering. If you're looking for any of this as well, we are on these learning bits. I always have guides attached. All of them are free resources. So if you want to learn more about that and do a bit more of a deeper dive, scan the QR code. It will take you straight to the resources. But this is where we're moving. Like, the model previously was the commodity, right? Having a good model, a better model, was what everybody was selling. Now, with the advent of Claude Code and Codex, even Copilot to a certain extent is the harness. It is the moat. It is the opportunity of everything that you build everything around from your AI future. And if your organizations just started talking, implementing Copilot licenses and stuff like that, based on where our AI capabilities are right now, I can tell you, you're 16 to 18 months, 6 to 18 months behind of where our AI capabilities are going to be and where you're moving into. That's not a bad thing. Everybody has to have a jumping on point somewhere, but I'm just telling you that that is not the end of the journey that we're going on by a long shot. Risk and regulation watch. So this is something that is always questions that come up around this. So I want to make sure that your understanding of what's going on is changing. So EU has deferred the EU AI Act's deadline by a few months. Now, what you're going to notice is the huge fines for things being for not being compliant with it. If you have any customers or you operate within the EU, you are going to need to comply with the EU AI Act. One thing that I would recommend to every organization right now is go to the EU AI Act and look at what they define as high risk, because even systems that you're already utilizing already might be considered high risk. And a really good example of that would be your applicant tracking system, your hiring systems, ATS systems. More and more of these hiring systems that filter through CVs and stuff like that are essentially they are considered high risk because they're starting to implement AI to be able to help filter out candidates and understand more around it. But because of the potential for discrimination, for AI always perpetuates societal norms and values, which means that they are not free from bias at all whatsoever. Those biases get built into applicant tracking systems. And the more AI that's involved with it, the more risk they are. So one of the things that I'd like you to do is look at your applicant tracking system, look at its AI capability, and then can look at whether, based on the EU AI Acts, that's hard to say 3 times faster, based on the EU AI Act, if it is compliant or non-compliant with that. If it's high risk, you've got to have it's not that you can't utilize it, but you have to have some strong tracking in place to make sure that you're not discriminating while utilizing them. The AI surveillance. So let me just check there. AI surveillance. So the one thing that I've been reading about this week is around the workforce, and essentially looking at companies that are starting to spring up that we've heard a lot about AI being utilized to track employees and check over productivity and stuff like that. But what we're actually seeing is this rise in surveillance for bosses. And this is essentially being able to look at what you would consider potential toxic bosses within the workplace, and being able to track things like emails, the way people communicate, all of that kind of stuff, which, I think I can see why people would see a lot of merit in that, particularly if you've ever been on the wrong side of a boss and you found that situation difficult. But a lot of the time, it doesn't necessarily address the cultural problems that are attached to it. So we have to be mindful that not all of these systems give us the full picture. I'll give you a really good example, and it ties into our applicant tracking system one as well. So I know someone partially deaf, partially blind, working in an office. They do a psychometric test as part of a job interview to look for a promotion. And as part of that promotion, they're looking through the psychometric results, and the individual goes in that psychometric, well, I prefer working by myself rather than working as part of a team. Which is a preference, and is very different than the ability to. A good example of that would be David Beckham kicks a football with his right foot. I kick a football with my right foot. We have the same preference, but a very different ability to kick a football with our right foot, particularly as I've got a broken ankle right now. So what I want you to be able to think about is, when it came to that example, they were told in the recruitment process that, well, actually, we want team players as part of this team, and you prefer working by your own. Doesn't say anything about capability, says about preference. And therefore, they were turned down from that job promotion based on that information. But the reason that they said that they preferred to work by themselves is because if you've got partial hearing loss, being in a room full of people, trying to listen to everybody talking at the same time, it's really hard to directionally pick out which person is talking if you have partial hearing loss. So that's why they said that. And that's the problem with these surveillance systems and the way that we implement AI is they might give us a piece of data, but they're only ever giving us a part of a piece of data. And without the capability to look at what that information means, start a conversation with people, it might be being misinterpreted. So we need to make sure that we are being mindful about how we ensure these technologies are being utilized for social good, not for social harm. Great. So that is 2 regulations. The accountability gap, always a really important one to be able to talk about. If you are a leader at any organization, it's really important to remember that a machine can never be held accountable, so it should never be making a management decision. If you're utilizing AI in a way in your workplace at the moment, what I want you to be able to think about is making sure that you understand that you take the consequences on for the implementation of AI and for those AI's decisions that they make. It's not good enough to be able to go to someone and go, we posted that thing on a social channel. Actually, it was our AI that posted it and it wrote a caption and we don't agree with that at all. If you haven't monitored that, those AIs can't be held responsible. It's going out to your company page. You are responsible for that information. Another part of this is, one thing that I think a lot of organizations do, it's the most common mistake that I see when I go into any organization, is they're like, we've got all these tools, or we've got a list of tools that we want to be able to have and we want to be able to utilize. Now what? And I want you to recognize that buying the platform is the easiest part of this process. What I would say is, don't start with the tools, start with the things that you are trying to solve, and then look at the tools that you might want to be able to get to do it. Sometimes you're going to want to buy tools, sometimes you're going to want to bootstrap it, sometimes you can utilize what you already have. But it all starts by understanding your workflow and not by just being able to go out there and buy a new platform. Remember, what's hot today might not be hot tomorrow. It's very hot here in the UK at the moment. We're going through a heat wave, but the winners of the AI races and the winners of these tools, they are going to be seen over the next few years. You're going to see that continuous growth of these AI platforms and the capabilities that they have. So I want you to be able to make sure that when you're buying these tools and applications, that you're able to reflect on it and be able to go, this might not have everything we need. It might not serve us today. It might, but what we want to be able to do is check, is this actually applicable to the workflow and the problems that we're trying to solve? If yes, it might be something worth investing in. If not, be mindful. You also might want to think about, if you're utilizing these tools, are you able to easily swap in models and stuff like that, depending on how the advancements do happen? Because otherwise you're locked into a vendor and you're locked in for a long time, and the capabilities might change quite significantly in that time. So you don't want to be having to make long-term contracts on an emerging technology. So 3 questions that you should be thinking about this week as we're going through, or over the next fortnight, is you keep upgrading your models. How do you tell if you're really getting the value from them that you're paying for? Are you paying for benchmarks that have no relevance to your organization at all? Second one is, if AI agents can now do the work, what do we train people in and who do we hire? I think the most important aspect as we look over the next few years is human-centric skill development. The most valuable skills to you in a digital economy are things that are hard for machines to be able to replicate. those are going to be the most valuable things. Also, AI works best when you have clarity of intention. If it's not clear what you're looking for, you're not going to get the best results from AI anyway. It's about those repetitive tasks. It is about those things that are the bits that you do over and over and over. Those are going to be the tasks that you're going to ferry out to your AI agents. So something to be mindful of as well. The EU has moved the AI Act. If you were looking at your compliance work, is this something you need to slow down, or is it something you need to keep going with? And I would say, although the act has moved further away, most people are missing out on the core essentials of what they need to be able to do at the moment. And most people will not see that compliancy in the EU AI Act that they think that they do. Really go and check it out. They've moved the deadline not because it's not for everybody's benefit. What they're doing is they're moving it because they realize how impactful this is going to be for a lot of business, and it's to give you more time to go and find out that regulation. So think about it, look at it, and see how it applies to your business. If you are interested in being able to learn a little bit more about some of the stuff that we're doing, we have another briefing that is going to be in Tuesday, 2 weeks' time. There's also a Thursday live, which is our live vibe coding sessions, which we go through the practicality bit. So this is the what you need to know. That bit is seeing is believing. It's showing you the art of the possible. It's not designed as a step-by-step, but I want to show you the capabilities of these tools. It's called We Don't Use AI the Same Way, and it's to really show you the extended benefits, the extended bits that you are not utilizing. So if you are utilizing AI chatbots at the moment and you're like, oh, I don't notice the difference between a model being able to, go and type into it or something, that's where you'll start to see the differences in those sessions. So come along Thursday if you want to come along to that. I'll see you all in a fortnight. If you are looking for extra resources during that time, you want to be able to learn a little bit more, go to bykov-brett.net/learning. What you'll be able to see is the Metropolitan Academy. We have guides, we have videos, blog articles, resources, and even the reports from today you'll be able to see in the system as well. So if you want to download this report to go over again and have a bit of an overview, then feel free to jump back into that and see what's going on. But yeah, there's plenty of tools here for anyone who's looking to learn. All of it's free. All of it is just about trying to keep you up to date and give you the most value possible. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks so much for your time. I hope you found this useful. If anyone has any questions and they want to be able to follow up with me, drop me a message. Always happy to try and help and do my best with you. So yeah, if there's anything I could do to help, let me know. Once again, thanks so much for your time, and I'll catch you in a fortnight's time, if not before. See you then.